What is going on, guys? My name is Noah Booker, and welcome back to my channel. So after what feels like a lifetime, I finally got to see Black Widow, and I've gathered my thoughts, and I'm ready to break them down for you guys. So I will be giving my full spoiler review for the movie. So with all this out the way, guys, let's jump right into it. And before we go any further, maybe leave a like, comment, subscribe if you like my content. But let's jump right into my review for Black Widow. So before Black Widow even came out, I have to be honest, I wasn't very excited for the movie. The trailers just weren't doing it for me, and I honestly felt like Natasha deserved her own movie back in the beginning of Phase 2, or at least the beginning of Phase 3. Phase 4 to me felt like it was too late, and they were just kind of cash grabbing in just because people were asking for it instead of actually having a good story. But I am here to say that the story they chose to tell was very good. I just think the execution wasn't great. That's not to undermine Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh's performances. I think they are the best parts. David Harbour does a good job as well, although he's not in the movie as much as I would like, and he's kind of just kicked to being a side character that is just there for comedic relief. People have not seen Stranger Things, please go watch it. David Harbour gets some of the best performances I've ever seen on a TV show as playing Harper in that show, and I just think he can do more. I would love to see him have a franchise. Hellboy didn't work out. He's only in Black Widow for a little bit, so fingers crossed down the line he gets to have his own franchise because I really do love that guy. But my favorite character to come out of the Black Widow movie is Florence Pugh's Yelena. I think she is great. She is a really grounded character and kind of gives an insight to what other people might think of the Avengers or the Avengers, the type of events that have been going on. I really love the character moments that she has with Natasha, as well as the other characters. She just really worked for me. I think Florence is a great actress. I loved her in Little Woman, and even though I didn't like Midsummer, I thought she was great in that. So I'm really liking how she's becoming more mainstream because I think she definitely has a lot of talent, and I think she's a great choice to be brought into the MCU because I think she's going to maybe take up the Black Widow mantle. Maybe I know she may make an appearance in the Hawkeye show due to the end credit scene, but only time will tell. But I would definitely like to see more of this character. Fingers crossed in the future. But I think my biggest gripes with Black Widow is the story, how it's told, and the villains. I think Black Widow goes to some very dark places, but in doing so, after every serious moment, they just make a joke. It happens constantly, and you're not allowed to maybe grieve with the characters. For instance, like at the ends where Yelena is at Natasha's grave, the other character pops up, and while Yelena is grieving, she blows her nose. Like, you could have not had her in that scene and just kind of let her have her moment. That to me would have been a much more beautiful send off for Natasha, that Yelena is now going to carry the torch, but they played it for laughs. And I just think that undermines the whole movie. Like I said, the other big gripe for me was the villains and Taskmaster. To me, I like the character. He's not my favorite character in the comics as far as villains go, but I do think it's a very unique character, and I did not hate the changes they made, as in the Taskmaster itself is actually Dreykov's daughter that Natasha actually blew up as a child to try to kill Dreykov. I thought that was a nice twist. Although I did see it coming from a mile away, I thought it was a nice twist and a play on the character, but Taskmaster is not only in the movie for maybe 5 minutes. It's kind of like how Heath Ledger's Joker was, but Taskmaster, in the very first scene you see him in, goes up against Natasha, and it is probably the best scene in the movie. That fight scene is well choreographed. It lands punches. Like, you get the sense that Taskmaster is not somebody to mess with, but he kind of just disappears and shows up one more time with Yelena and Natasha, and then at the very end, like, for that character, I think it should have been a constant threat. Everywhere Natasha was, I think Taskmaster should have shown up and should have been a threat that this thing is unbeatable. You cannot beat this entity. It is better than you. And I felt like that would have been a much more better concept for Natasha to go with, is that she cannot beat this. She has to run. She's been running her whole life, but this is kind of like the analogy for that. Let Taskmaster be her past that she's been running from, but now coming full circle and going back at her. I thought that would have been a much smarter way to handle it, but they just kind of let Taskmaster run around for a couple scenes and then they put him back in the vault. And I didn't think that was the best way to handle that character. Black Widow to me just felt like such a step back after, the great success that Phase 3 was. I felt like Marvel had kind of fixed their villains problem with Loki, uh, Thanos, Killmonger, a lot of these great villains that now that Black Widow has come out, they're kind of backtracking. Dreykov and Taskmaster, they were okay, very one-dimensional, not a whole lot, to get connected to. They were there. They're supposed to be bad, Natasha's supposed to win, but I didn't feel like connection. Like when Natasha, bested Dreykov, I didn't feel anything. Like I was just like, oh, okay, that was supposed to happen. Let's move on. And I think that's how I mostly feel about this movie. Like this is just, a placeholder until we get to some of the other things that Marvel's planning, like Eternals, Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, and other things that Marvel has down the pipeline. More interesting things, in my opinion. Black Widow is very, in its own little bubble, which is fine. It's a lot like a Phase 1 and early Phase 2 movies, but I just feel like it wasn't necessary. Like, this movie should have come out Phase 1 or Phase 2. Like, Scarlett Johansson has put in the time. Natasha Romanoff is a great character. She was the third Avenger. We saw her in Iron Man 2 back in the day. Like, she deserves her own movie. Why are we just now getting it now, especially after Avengers Endgame? Her character died. Her story was over with. This movie, I think, should have come out earlier. That is just, to me, it just makes me, that's the most upsetting thing about this movie. It just did not need to be made at this time. It should have been made a long time ago, in my opinion. So my final thoughts for Black Widow are, this movie to me was such a disappointment. I love Natasha Romanoff's character. I think Black Widow is fantastic, but this movie to me just felt like such a letdown. The trailers were a letdown, and then walking in the movie, it was better than I was expecting, but still at the end of the day, not what I wanted out of a Black Widow movie. The action was great. That was a plus. The story was great. They just boggle it down with unneeded comedy and just so much filler. Like, this movie should have been better than it was. Scarlett Johansson deserved better for her outing as Black Widow. She definitely deserved it. But like I said, guys, these are just my opinions. Some of you may like this movie, and please let me know in the comments if you love Black Widow. I think it's great if you did. Wasn't for me. But guys, with all that being said, please leave a like, a comment, subscribe. I know I've been gone. Life's been crazy lately, but I do have more videos on the way, more content coming. Like I said, so guys, please bear with me. Hope you all have a great day. Much love. Be good people, and I'll see you next time.